Hazır sizlik işleklik bu değil mi? İşleklik mi olacak? İşleklik bu değil mi? İşlek duruş gerek bu değil mi bence? Bence işlek duruş gerek. Bak kız oldu sorayı hemen. İşedeki birisinden sorayı.
Menimce
İşleklik bu değil mi?
Men gelip kovan vaqtimda ma'nın qopesishim kerak, shundaqmi?
He. Hazır başlığında cayağına oturma. To'xtab birisidan sor. Bugün bizning tabriklaydigan, shundaqlab eslaydigan bir kunimiz, ya'ni bizning mustaqillik kunimiz. Buning 40-chilik uchrayotgan xalqqa buning ma'nosi nima degan vaqtida, ya'ni Xitoy millatchi, irqiy, kamsituvchi, shundaq bir Xitoy davlatiningki otliq xalqqa nima deb, nima ma'nosi degan vaqtda, endi shunda bir mezgilda menga bu so'zni berganliginglar ham shuni Muşnunğa riyasətçilik qıvatqınımdan özəmini xoş his qılma. Biz körüvatımız xalqara cəmiyyətlərinin ki bu ahvallarning qandaq bo'layotganiga qarab turishi mana shundan bilan shu dunyoga nisbatan haqiqatan nemish bo'layotganligi, ya'ni bir qo'rqinchliq dushmanlikning bo'layotganligi shohidlar mana bu yerda oldimizda turibdi. Bularning so'zlari insoniyat ruhiyatining qandaqligini bir asli misolda bizga, ya'ni bularningki bo'layotgan haqiqatga bo'lgan shohidligi, dunyo qo'rqinchli shohidligi, dunyodagi xalqlarning bir harakat ilib berishiga, ya'ni harakatga o'tishiga bir madad va yoki bo'lish harakatga bir sabab bo'lishi shart. Bütün dünya bo'yicha mushunda qurbonlarningki, ya'ni mushularga o'xshash shohidlarningki so'zlari nihoyatda bir muhim. İnsanlar bugün müşahid men bilan o'tirgan har biringlarningki mushularningki mushundaq bir shohidlik qilishga, ya'ni shohidlik qilishga, shohid bo'lishning o'zi nihoyatda bir taqdirga yetishnim qilag'liq. Qalbi nurningki qimmatli shohidligi, o'zining beshini o'tganlarini dunyoga deyishib, shu Xitoy kommunist tuzuminingki insoniyatga qarshi jinoyatlarni o'tirg'ini qilishda nihoyatda muhim rolni o'ynaydi. Gulbar Xativaji bu qizmi jaza lagerining shohidi. Sharq Turkistonga Fransiyadan o'zining baribir xizmat dokumentlarini hal qilish uchun borgan. Berish jarayonida Xitoyningki jaza lageri nimasidan ahvollarga shohid bo'lgan. Buni o'zining kitobida o'tirib qo'ydi. Ömerbek Ali bo'lsa, bu o'ziningki qandaq qilib o'ziningki nimada qo'rqinchli tajribalarni beshidan o'tkazgan. Undan keyin Jerbol Erqan kompüter orqali, ya'ni internet orqali bizga qo'shildi. Bu kishi Atajurt Qozoq kishilik huquq organiningki bir kishisi. Ham bu kishining o'ziningki shu Xitoy Kommunistik Partiyasininki insoniyatga qarshi jinoyatini oshkorlashda bularning shohidligi nihoyatda muhim. Bularning hammasi bizning faxrimiz. Hem shundaqlar bular haqiqiy qahramonlar. Bu albatta so'zlash, bu bundaq ahvollarni o'ziga shohidlik qilish oson emas. Bu o'ziningki shaxsiy hayoti hamma narsaning qurbon qilish badaliga. Bularningki jasorati hammamiz uchun ulgu bo'lish kerak. Shuning uchun shu har bir so'zliguvchilarga biz 5 minutdan vaqt beramiz.
Good day to all of you. Good day to all of you, my courageous friends. Welcome to the 7th Convention of the General Assembly of the World Uyghur Congress, to all of you. In 2017, I worked several months for a camp teaching Chinese. In the camp, what I saw was horrendous. There were 40 to 50 people in each cell of this camp. The police and the camp guards did not see people as human beings. They only gave them very short time, only 1 minute to go to the bathroom. They were put in shackles. And they were taken directly in shackles from their cell to the teaching room and straight back again afterwards. The Chinese police officers, in the morning, at night, all the time, took them out to interrogation and also tortured the camp inmates. From September to November in 2017, I was at a camp for women. I saw what happened. I saw how the people there were being tortured, how they were being sexually assaulted. There were girls from 18 to 80 years of age. They shaved off their hair, the hair of every one of them. She's taken a break because she's touched and can't go on speaking. She's crying. I'm sorry, she says. They had prisoners' clothes on, and they had a number, just like prisoners in prison. They were not allowed to speak to each other. They were only allowed to speak when they were called on and spoken to. Many of them were raped. Sometimes they were even lined up and raped one after the other. They were tortured with electric rods. And the Chinese police officers, they took pleasure in it. This I heard from the police officers themselves. They took pleasure in torturing them and putting food in front of them when they couldn't eat. I saw all of this with my own eyes. What I'm saying means that in East Turkestan, these kind of atrocities are taking place. I've seen them with my own eyes. I saw young girls getting injections that stopped their period from coming. This means they've been given injections and also medicine that stops them from being able to have children. Therefore, the women who stayed in these camps, even those who survived, they are not the same as they were before, and many of them will probably not be able to have children in the future. These types of torture of abuse I saw every day in the camp. This means that genocide is taking place in East Turkestan. It's our duty, we as parts of the human race, as human beings, to see this and talk about this and try to stop this. Those of us who don't join that should be ashamed of ourselves. This rape, this abuse, we need to remember. We should never forget. And we have to continue to point the world's attention to it. We should never stop that. Thank you very much. Good day, my relatives, my friends, people from all over the world, my common sufferers from the camps. I was lured into going back to China, to East Turkestan, by a former colleague. I traveled from France back to Xinjiang thinking that I needed to take care of some paperwork. When I arrived in Karamay, the first thing that happened was the Chinese police officers took my passport and made sure they knew where I would live. I went to my mother's place in Khulja and stayed there. This was in 2017. The 9th of November, a police officer called me down to the local police office in Karamay. After I got there, they took blood samples, they took my fingerprints, and examined me physically in all kinds of ways, took pictures of my face and my eyes and so on. Then they took me to an internment camp in Karamay, and I had to sign papers that I wouldn't speak about what happened. At that point, my weight was 65 kilograms, and they also took my height. In this internment camp, we were just women, mostly Uyghurs. We were not allowed to speak Uyghur to each other. All we got was a piece of steamed bread and some soup to eat. We were taken to interrogation often. There were from young girls to elderly women. When we were taken to interrogation, we were sat in a tiger chair, in an iron chair, and were interrogated there. Some of us were chained to the bed for a long time. We could not go to the bathroom. I was then later taken to a different internment camp where we were surveilled all around the clock. We just went into our cell and back out again like robots. We were not allowed to talk to each other. And we were given injections. After we were given injections, a lot of women's periods stopped. The camp was overfilled. In October 2018, they took us to a different camp, an even bigger camp with more than 700 people interned, as far as I could judge. At that time, my weight had fallen from 65 kilos to less than 50 kilos, and I was taken to a separate room with slightly better conditions. This is also because they had gotten news from France that people were aware that I was in the camp, so I was moved to a different place with better conditions. I was then allowed to speak to my family, but before I was allowed to speak to them, the police officers taught me exactly what I could say and what I couldn't say. In the end, they gave me my passport back, and they informed me that I couldn't speak about what had happened in the camp, and that if I did, that my relatives in China, my relatives in East Turkestan would be punished. In 2019, in summer, I returned safely to France. Good day, everybody. My name is Ömer Bekali. My problems also started in 2017. At that time, I was working in a tourist company. While traveling back to East Turkestan, I was arrested and accused of being a terrorist. They forced me to sign papers admitting to my crimes. They put me in a cell with 34 other people, a very small enclosed cell. When I was transported back and forth, it was always with a black hood over my head. And here we were beaten. We can take beatings. I could accept to be beaten, but I didn't give in to them, because I love my freedom. They tortured me. They put something like a hair or a cable up into my penis and tortured me in many other terrible ways in order to get me to sign that I was a terrorist. Many people sign after half an hour of beating and torture. But after half an hour of beating, your body stops feeling the pain. So I kept saying that I was innocent because I hadn't done anything and I did not sign their papers of confession. The system I was in the camps I was in, is a very secretive system that is not known to the outside world.
Ben şu bilayotgan men bir 5 kamerada yatdım. Şu jarayonda bilgan tanışkan qarindoshlarning birasining hayot ekanligiga men hozir bilmayman. Hech qanday xabarim yo'q. Shu qatorda mening otammi shu kampida mening ovozimni o'chirish uchun o'ltirib tashlandi. 2018-yil 9-oyning.
On the 18th of September in 2018, I know that a man called Yunus Ablis, whom I was staying with in one cell, was beaten to death in the camp. I'm thinking that others who refused to sign their papers of fake confession also were beaten to death. I got out alive. I have come out to tell my story, to show my story to the whole world, to the Christian world, to the Muslim world, to talk about the torture and the suffering I had to endure, for the sake of all the other Uyghurs who are also suffering, all the other people in East Turkestan who are also suffering. The Chinese government created a propaganda story about what is going on in East Turkestan in order to trick the rest of the world into not knowing what is actually happening. They have destroyed all Uyghur and Kazakh families in Eastern Turkestan. The Chinese are not just our enemies, they're the enemies of the whole world. And it's our duty to tell the world about their crimes. To try to save the world from the enemies of humankind, the Chinese Communist Party. I got to Kazakhstan, where China's power is also strong, and I had to leave Kazakhstan in order to save myself. No country was brave enough to give me a visa, but the Czech Republic gave it to me within half an hour. And I thank the Czech Republic for this. Here we live freely. We don't give in to cruelty. And I will continue speaking about this and telling my story. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Erbol efendim, siz bir 5 minut özünüzün kısaca tanıştırgaç.
Mr. Erbol, you get 5 minutes to present yourself and your situation, tell your story in brief terms. Thank you very much. My name is Yebol Dawlitbek. I'm from Kazakhstan. I'm one of the heads of Atayurt, Kazakh Human Rights Organization. In 2016, the Chinese government opened up internment camps in East Turkestan and started and started to intern people, Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other ethnic minorities. We started to hear about the abuses and the torture in the camps.
Адамдарға белгісіз дәрілер берді, уколдар екті. Бұл Қытайдың жергілікті ұлттарды жою фашистік іс-әрекеті болып саналады.
Siz to'xtamay
Within short time in Kazakhstan, we started to have camp survivors coming across the border from East Turkestan. And already in 2017, the number had gone beyond 100 of people who had stayed in the internment camp, who had been interned in the camps in East Turkestan and had been able to flee to Kazakhstan. So in 2017, we opened an office in Almaty. To take video testimony from the people who had been tortured and interned in the camps in East Turkestan. In total, we took over 2,000 testimonies from these people.
Қазақстандағы Қытай лагерінен жатып келген куәгерлер. Осы куәгерлерден куәлік алу жұмысын тез арада қолға алу керек. Қазақстанда қазір бұндай куәгерлердің саны 100-ден асады.
We also took testimony from people who had stayed in the camps and afterwards had been sent to forced labor. More than 100 people.
Ұлттарды жою саясатын, жауыздық әрекетін бүкіл әлемге жария етуде осы Қазақстандағы көзі тірі куәгерлердің маңызы өте жоғары. Бұл фашистік лагерді Қытай не үшін құрды? Осы жергілікті ұлттарды жою үшін құрды. Осы адамдар ғана дәлел болып Қытайдың осы саясатын ашық, жария әлемге паш етеді. Сондықтан осы куәгерлерден куәлік
established intimate camps in East Turkestan because they tried to create a forced labor force which the Chinese authorities is planning for a long time. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. Həmmіңлар көптен көп рахмет мұшы қырғыншылық хақыда. Bu kişi bolsa сіңлісі азыр Қытайның кеміш қорқынышлық лагерді соланған. Шақсан мен өзімнің әдәм аштақ бір егі соланған бір кіші, бұл маңы ниспеттен бұнда әхвалан аңлаш асан әмес. Әлбәттә мешәт оттағаларның һәммәсе Қытайның кеміш қорқынышлық лагер системасыны дейш әммәңлан алды асан әмәс. Әлбәттә һәр кемнең бишек кәкәм ошо күлләге нисбәтән буны даим уларның куркынычлык кәшмишләреңләрне бишеңләр селеш яки сәмеңләр селеш асан әмәс. Гәр шундый ахваллар мәвҗүд булсымы Хытай хөкүмәтенең хата учуры, ялганчылыгы, тәшвиқатлары yana bərabər atalmış akademiklar muşu Xitayınınki hazır qılıb atqan işini qırğınçılıqmı emasmı dep o haqda münazirə elib berişi hem muş Xitay hökumətinin yalğan uçur taqtışı hem muşu təşviqat qilishi muşundaq ahvalları qarta biz əlbəttə davamlıq muşu Xitayınınki insaniyyətə qarşı cinayet ötküzüp atqan hem qırğınçılıq ötküzüp atqan muşu ahvallarını davamlıq dünyaga yo'rtishimiz kerak. Әмді сілер мұшы қырғыншылық ниспәтән мұшы өзаңларның көз қарышыны өзаңлар біз білән бәхірмен болсаңлар мәсәлән гәрчә мұшы сілердің өзаңларның кәшміштеріңлар кәчүрміштеріңлар сөзләш шунда қиын болсымы Қытай өкіметі сілер қаршы тұрып тосымы сілердің қызметіңлар бұл қадар тосалғы тосымы неме үшін сілер мұшы Қытайды болып атқан мұшы nemligini qarşılığını özаңla Xitayninki ahvalını, cinayetini paş qilishni davamlashtirib atsizlar. Albatta sizlarninki şahidliginglar mush Xitoy hukumatiningki o'tkazayotgan jinoyatini sud jinoyatini hisob elish uchun aytib muhim. Sizlarga nisbatan mush hozirgi xalqaro jamoatchilikninki mush jinoyatga qarta hozirgi bo'lgan pozitsiyasini umidsizlantiradigan ahvol nima?
She's translating the questions into Uyghur that she just asked in English.
Gerçi biz sizlerinin davamlıq bunu əslab sözüşünlərini xalımısaqmı, bırak növətdə Xitay hökumətinin yalğancılıqları da özünün təsirdən faydalanıb bu irqi qırğınçılıqni rədd qılıb kelib atqanlıqları səbəblərdən biz sizlərinin oturğa çıxıb davamlıq sözüşünlərə biz ehtiyaclıyıq, biz bununla muhtaç. Şunun üçün sizlərinin hər birinlərinin şəxsən özünlərinin nəzərinlərdə sizlərinin müşündaq davamlıq sözüşünlər nemi üçün mühüm? Birinci. İkinci sual, Xitayның bu insaniyyətə qarşı cinayeti və irqi qırğınçılığı bilən xalqarada hazır Xitayga qarşı biraz hərəkətləndirgüç güc hasıl bolğandək boldu. Biroq yanıla nəhayət asta. Endi Xitay kommunistik hakimiyetini jazalandırış yoki birər əmli hərəkət qilish degəndə yanılan bu bo'lmayıpatdı həmmimiz kögünümüzdək. Şuna sizlərni həm də şəxsən hər birinlərni bu cəhətdə Xitayның bu vəhşiliklərə, irqi qırğınçılıqqa inkas qaytırışda dünya miqyasının yoki dövlətlərinin qaysı tərəflərdəki işlər hazır sizlərni bək ümidsizləndirdi.
Mən birinci yox sizniki.
I'll start out answering your first question. In East Turkestan, they have taken the richest, the most successful, the best intellectuals and locked them up. Put chains on their hands, put chains on us, and therefore we have to speak about this. It's not because of our religion. It's not because anything we've done. It's because this place, East Turkestan, belongs to us. It's our place. That is why they're attacking us in this way. Therefore, we have to speak about what really has happened. We have to speak about the chains that they have put on us, the abuses that we have suffered. This is all of our duty, all of us as human beings, no matter what language we speak, no matter who we are. We shouldn't let the Chinese just do this in peace, just do this without any kind of response or consequence, to let them just continue with their Olympic Games, continue with spreading the virus. This makes me sad, the fact that that is possible.
Мен дәсәптә Франциягә чыккан вакытымда ватанны капкаган шу урықты калдырымдан әнсірәп.
In the beginning, when I just got back from East Turkestan out of camp and came to France, I was worried about my relatives in East Turkestan. Therefore, I didn't speak about this publicly. I didn't tell my story. But my daughters talked to me about it, and others as well, and they convinced me how important it is for me to share my story. Therefore, I started talking about it, started sharing what had really happened. I thought about, why don't I tell about the abuses I have experienced in East Turkestan? And I came to the conclusion that I need to talk, that I need to tell what is really happening, what has really gone on. I feel the same as the two others. After I got out of camp and got to the Netherlands, my health was not good. My husband is still in East Turkestan and many of my relatives, so therefore at that point I thought, I can't speak about this. But I've seen so much cruelty, so much abuse. And right now, millions of our people are still in East Turkestan, are still subjected to this kind of abuse and this kind of atrocities. And they have no chance of speaking about it. They have no chance of telling anyone about it. Therefore, I have to act as their voice. I have to show the world and tell the world what has really happened. I have to show the world that genocide on the Uyghurs is really happening. Because I'm the one outside, I'm the one who has the opportunity to do this, and I won't stop.
Қытай үкіметінің қырғыншылығы аялларының бәдінне бір ұрыш майданыға айландырып әтті. Uyghur ayalları mecburi toy qığıdış Xitaylağa, mecburi tuğmas qılıb etiş, mecburi tuğmas operasiya qilish. Muşundaq ahvallarni öz işiga alğan, mında aytqanda hökumət adamlardan ularni insonlikdan chiqarib, ularni dəpsənd qilish, Uyghur ayallarını Munda aytqanda ularlıqı mundaq buvaq yasaydigan maşinlar emas bular deb shu qadar dəpsəndi ko'rish mushundaq ahvallar mavjud. Mana mushundaq ahvallar mavjud bo'lgan qirg'inchilik uchirgan Uyg'ur xalqi siz xalqaradan sizlar nimani kutisizlar?
Mecburi tug'mas qilinish, mecburi bolasini tushirish degandek har turlik teröristlik nimeler bilen Uyghur ayalları yani atalmış Xitay hükümetininki ularni aşında qılıp tuğmaz qıp bolğandan keyin aşkar halda xalqarada Uyghur ayalları endi boğaq yasaş maşinalari emas deb e'lon qilyapti. Deb ochiq aşkara aştaqda deyishga jasorat qildi. Endi sizlar bir Uyghur ayalları buluşup bilen xalqaro jamiyatlardan yani tashkilotlardan qandaq bir alaydı yordam yoki nimalarni kutsizlar?
So she repeats her question in Uyghur. I'm an Uyghur woman, and as such, I expect from the rest of the world to recognize the abuses, the forced abortions, the forced sterilizations exerted on Uyghur women. The whole world has heard about these abuses, about the Chinese family planning, forced sterilization, forced stopping of Uyghur births. And I expect from them, from the US government, from the European governments, to recognize this as a genocide and to do what they can to stop it, including to stop the Chinese from just continuing with the Olympic Games in a 21st century while it is committing genocide.
For the audiences and the press, Yerbal, you have done an amazing job gathering testimonies from Kazakh victims of the camps. Can you update us on some of the common difficulties that you face when you are collecting those testimonies from the victims of the camps? Қытайның жаза лагерлерде етіп шыққан Қазақстандагы қарындашларның гуақтық топлаш үшін сенің тәшкилатыңларны айты яхшы қызметті болды. Мұшу шахитлардан сіз ұшу шахитларның келіп ispatlıq berişini talep qılğan vaxtlarınızda qandaq qiyinçılıqlarga yoluqdınız? Bunu 2 minut toxtamay sözləp.
So she repeats the question in Uyghur. The people who had been to camp and who had come out to Kazakhstan were worried about their relatives back in East Turkestan. So in order to not put them at risk, they were reluctant to speak out about it. And many of them did not feel safe in Kazakhstan even. So they didn't have the chance to speak out and to tell their stories to the international community. Most of them had big health problems also after staying in the camps. And that added to the difficulty. They need humanitarian aid. They need the international community to stand up for them and to help them.
Әмді ақпаратның һәм шындақла қатнаш қойчыларныңки суалларыға очық.
I would like to add one thing. If the Chinese government is not committing genocide against us, if you say that they didn't put us in camp, all of it has been recorded. All of it has been recorded on surveillance cameras. If the Chinese say it's not happening, then please give us the footage. Show us the footage of my internment. We know you have it. And show us that what I have said is not true. If it's not true, then open the doors, let the international community go and examine what has happened and what is happening in East Turkestan and show us the footage from these cameras.
Anybody has questions?
Суалларыңла бармы? Сорайдыған суалларыңла болса, сораңла. Çığır. Köp rahmet. Bu naytı bir içinişlik bir söz boldy. Hem şundaqla naytı kän daýyrlyk, Gülbahar, Kanem Kalbin Rısadık. Hanımla biz şu Garipniki paytaxtı bolgan hem Washington Amerikanınki paytaxtı bolgan muşundaq yerlerde muş ayallarning hak-huquqlary haqqında nurgullygan muşda qollaýdygan organlar bar. Hem şundaqla bu haqda nurgullygan kanunlar bar, çıkarılgan kanunlar. Ýa-da miňligan muş haqda kanunlar bar. Meniň sualym şu kişilik hukuk instrumentlari yoki qorallary muşula sizler Şarkı Türkistan'da beşiňlar kelgen muşu keçirmişleriňlar şulağa nisbeten bir pozitif yoki ijobiy bir ta'sir kösterlemdi şu kanunlar işlemdi sizlerning dädiňlarga yetişke.
She is rephrasing the question in Uyghur to the panel participants.
Garip ellerde bolupmu Avrupa elleri ve Amerika, Kanada ve başka devletlerde bolsun bunun ayti oturga açıp nurgullygan orullarda Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatlarında qayt oturup koyuluwatydy Avrupa parlamentlerinde.
Many international organizations have written much and passed much on human rights. Are they reacting to what has happened to you?
Yardımı bulamdı yoki bolmasa neyimiz?
Have they helped you? Have they had a positive impact on you, your life, and your ability to tell your story?
Avaz barmı?
Can you hear me? That is a great question.
Bir näslen misal Xitay qarsam Xitay biz onda qıldyk, munda qıldyk, hem hukuklary batып sibrasını köstüdü. Ameliyatda astırtdan mahfi halda aksiçe texmi güçlendirip en tez süratda Şarkı Türkistan'ın zemin egileri bolgan insanlarını asta közden gayip qilish. Xitay bek özüge işençi var. Onun medisiga tepkiziп atkan narsa pul, iqtisad. O biz biydik. Boş ver deydi bu. BDT'nizni, Avrupa parlamentinizni, Amerikanizni boş ver deydigan Xitay bu. Biz Uygurlarga
There has been a few embargoes and a few sanctions, but except for that, there has been no direct reaction to the stories that we have told. There has been no political reaction to it. Many of us are not able to speak to our relatives. We don't have normal relations. In the 21st century, we're not able to communicate with our relatives. This has not been enabled by the international communities.
Okay.
Memo bir şahit men sual 20 yılı menin apam yer astidagi bir türmege solunypdy. Men bunu TikTok'ta gördüm, yani işte yer astidagi bir türmege sebetipdi dep. Men Xitay konsulunun aldida 1 yıldan beri namayiş qılattım men şu apamning ki solunup ketganligi haqida. Mening sualim, men şun bir uçur aldım. U yerda bir yer astı türmeleri bar dep, yani jaza lagerleri emas, yer astı türmeleri bar dep şundaq anladım. Kördüm. Eğer muşu ne bolsa toğrumı muşu yer astı türmelerinin mevcutluğu. Onun 21 yılı mening apamninki
Мен bu üçün тапшырып.
He's rephrasing his question in Uyghur about his mother being detained in the underground prisons and asking the panelists whether these underground prisons exist and what their relation is to the camps.
Лaqdan xabar tapqandım. Rahmet.
Bundan ben cevap vereyim.
I would like to answer that. I stayed in 2 camps in total a year. One of them was called Dawanchang. You've probably heard about it. It's a huge prison near Urumqi. It's a built camp, and I stayed in the women's part of it. A building of 6 stories where the cadre used to live and stay. They have made the former cadre living quarters and their event halls into a prison. They've changed a lot of formerly normal buildings into prison buildings, but I haven't heard about underground prisons.
Men Pichan Naylik şu lagerine kinemsiyatqa vaqtimda Ablimit Qari dediğin yanqiliq balı var.
When I stayed in the camps, there was a person called Abdulhamid Qari. He told me that he was brought to one of these underground prison cells and tortured and interrogated. Underneath Karamay, there is an area underground that used to be a bazaar, a marketplace, and I've heard that this has completely been turned into a prison, which then is underground. And this is where the Chinese carry out their worst atrocity, their most secret atrocities and abuses.
Ben bundan kısa cevap vereyim. Benim akam Hasan Hüseyin.
I would like to ask a short question. My elder brother is Hassan Hussein. In 2016, he was arrested in Beijing at the airport, and he was taken back to Urumqi and kept in an underground prison for 6 months. He had not done anything at all. We were able to, with the help of other countries, governments, to get him out and bring him to Australia. He is now in Australia, and he's been able to tell his story and to testify to the existence of underground prisons.
Any other questions?
Başka soğallar var mı soraydan?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is.
Benim ismim Esra Şemşek. Memleşedeki bir yaşlar grupsunun misi. Hemenler köpten köp rahmet. Bir yerde oturup sizlerinki aytqanlaryny anlaşyny aytyp qiyin. Bilmeymen muşunu 5-ňyl ötken qanda bolgandy. Men hazır sizlerning yaşawatkan döwletler haqqında sual sormakçı. Sizler hazır yaşawatkan şu döwletingler turup hazır kadar Xitayning tahdidiga uchrawatmysizlar. Agar Xitayning tahdidiga uchrawatgan bolsaňlar şu erkin dünya turup sizlerinki bir sizlerge yordam qildigan sen qo'llaydigan bir nemeler barmı? İşte bir sistem yoki yordam barmı?
Deytimi? Meningki sualım sizlerge özüňler yaşawatkan, her biringlar özüňler yaşawatkan döwletlerde hazırmı sizler Xitayninki tahdidlerini beşiňlardan ötküzüp atamsızlar yoki her türlük Xitay hökümetiniň yoki Xitayninki jyraqdan ýakyndan sizlerge qıwatkan her türlük ziyankeşliklerine uçrap atamsızlar ve şu döwletlerde sizlerge қандақ бір ярдәм болатыды.
At the end of 2019, I started speaking about my experiences. Before The Guardian, who was the first paper to publish my story, published, the Chinese were already starting to threaten me. They called me and abused me verbally, and my husband was forced to divorce me over WeChat from China. After that, I didn't see him for a long time, but suddenly his video turned up in the Chinese propaganda, and I saw him. I could see how afraid he was. I could hear it from the way he was speaking, how much they had put him under pressure. They haven't stopped trying to attack me. They don't stop trying to attack us. We call ourselves Uyghurs. We speak Uyghur. As long as we exist, they will not stop trying to attack us. Also, the Uyghur Tribunal, they have been attacking. They have called it different things to diminish its influence and diminish its reputation. But we speak and we show the proof and the evidence that we have. We have evidence. We know what camps we've stayed in, who was there, where the women were staying, who was forcefully sterilized. All of this is completely clear. It's out there. We keep presenting this evidence. Why don't you believe us? Why don't you take this in? Why don't you react to it? We're presenting the evidence to you. Why don't you react to it? Why don't you stop the Chinese from attacking us? Why do you allow them to spread their lies and their videos still, after all that you've seen? I'm staying in the Netherlands, quite out in the countryside. There is no Chinese around. I feel that I've been taken care of in the sense of my personal safety by the Netherlands. The Chinese will not stop attacking us. That is clear. The Chinese accused me of having channeled $20 million to terrorist activities. In 1991, when I was a hotel manager, I was working with the Chinese also, and I was doing business also in Xinjiang. If they had just left us alone, if they had just let us live our lives, there wouldn't have been problems for anyone. We did not take part in any of the activities that they accuse us of. For me, in order to get me out of camp and out of China and back to France to my family, the French government has given me a lot of support, and I'm really grateful for that. I have written about my experiences in French in a book. After this book came out, the Chinese consul, ambassador in France, called me a terrorist and started attacking me. Since then, I have lost contact to all of my relatives in East Turkestan. They stopped talking to me.
Bir sual üçün vaxtımız var. Əgər sualınla bolsa, faqat bir sual üçün. Rəhmət.
First of all, I would like to thank.
Aldı bilən əminizlərə rəhmət etmə, həmminlə təbrikləymə. Yəni sizlərin cəsarətinizlə təbrikləymə. Bu şu məsələni müstəq cəsarətdən sözünə şu Uyğurların dərdini anlatqanlar üçün rəhmət etmə. Əlbəttə mən bəzi bir adamlarni bilməm şu erkin dünyaya çıxan. Ama yani şunda çıqalğan bolsunmu besim səbəbindən Uyğurlarning bunda erkin sözləməyənini qımı şahid. Şərq Türkistandakı tuqqanlardan ənsirəb. Mening sualım, sizlər şu kadar qimmatlik uçurlarni badanglar erkin dunyoga, yani şu Uyg'urlarga uchrayotgan masalalar haqida, yani şu Xitoy hukumatiningki Uyg'urlar qaratgan şu besim haqida. Men umid qilmanki, dunyo erkin dunyo albatta sizlarning uçurunglarni anglishi, tushunishini umid qilma. Hem elbette hazır müştaq ayıplaş, bunda ahvallarni buningdan ensirdik deydi, shundaq quruq cho'ng gaplar ko'p, biroq ama menimcha bu yetarlik emas. Ama Şarkı Türkistan menimcha bütün şu erkin dunyoning hareketlerden bir amaliy tadbiriga muhtoj. Mening suolim, sizlar dedinglarmi şu jazo lageridagi ahvollarni? Şu jazo lagerining sirtidagi ahvollar qandaq? Masalan, jazo lagerining sirtida insonlar biroz erkinmi? Masalan, jazo lagerining sirtidagi haqlar qandaq? Çünkü sirtdagi vatanning sirtdagi kishilar faqat 1 milyon odamlar deb nim qildi. 1 milyon adam şunda bir besim uçurdu deb qardı. Ondan keyin erkin dunyoga nurg'un kishilar faqat şu 1 milyon adam besim uçurayotidu, amma bu 1 milyondan boshqa jazo lagerining sirtidagilar rohat turmushda deb qaraydi. Sizlarning qarashinglarcha ahvol qandaq? Muşu bir söz belgeçi sözlegendek hakikaten muşu hazır bütün vatan Şarkı Türkistan bir uçuk turmu mu?
Bunda cesaret bilen.
He's rephrasing his question in Uyghur.
Sizi tebrikleyemem. Elbette pek mühim uçurlarını siz halkara.
I congratulate on you, on your courage, and on standing up and telling your very important stories and information, sharing it with the international community.
4 açıp, 8 açıp, hatta Xitayını tüzük tonup ve Xitay'a karşı bir emeli hareketke ötsün de ümidimiz var. Benim sualım sizge, eğer siz ahval...
I hope that this will turn into a proper movement, a proper political action for the Uyghurs.
Bunda bir yaman emas bir derecede bir erkin.
And I would like to ask, what about the Uyghurs outside of the camps? Is it only those in the camps suffering? Are those outside living in freedom or not?
Лагер сыртыдагы кайрындашларыбыз мы?
Those outside of the camps are also living in a type of prison, an open-air prison. Everything is controlled and everything is surveilled. There are scanners that scan our irises, that scan our faces. Everywhere there's armed police, armed military. 24 hours around the clock, everybody, all Uyghurs and Kazakhs in East Turkestan are surveilled, are under control. Any type of communication on our phones or anywhere else is intercepted, read, checked. They come into our houses, go through everything. They have this very strong flashlight. I will never forget it. They go in, look at everything from your toilet to your bedroom. They write up everything you have, what kind of books, what kind of things you have in your house, and you have to sign it. And they will come back and check what has appeared, what has disappeared. We have to account for that. That is the type of control that people in East Turkestan are living under. While I was still in East Turkestan, my husband and I were afraid all the time. When will they come? When will they come for us? Even at night we couldn't sleep. So nervous that they could come any time and that they would find something in our things, in our clothes that didn't suit them, that didn't suit their ideology, and that we could be taken in for that. We were living at the back door, the back gate of Xinjiang University, and we saw a lot of things there. We saw them come at night. We saw the surveillance. We saw them put black hoods over people's heads and lead them off. And except for that, also, the women were brought to the local government's basement areas. From 18 to 58, they had to come and submit themselves to forced birth control. Everybody had to go. Everybody that was in the age of being able to bear children. Even if you only had one child and you didn't want to submit yourself to the sterilization procedures, we were still forced to undergo these operations. They were also surveilling us through the so-called pairing relatives program, where Han Chinese would come to our homes and stay there for days or even weeks at a time. Sometimes when the Han Chinese who lived at our place would be drunk, they would show us a certificate where it said that we had to share 5 things. We have to eat together, we have to stay together, we also have to sleep together, sleep in one place. There's not time enough to speak of all the atrocities and all the sufferings that we have been witness to. But it's also outside of the camps, definitely. I would like to say one thing. When I was living in East Turkestan, outside of the camps, there was a system where I had to ask for permission from the local government to go anywhere at all outside of my own neighborhood. I had to go to the local government committee and ask for permission. They couldn't even give me the permission directly. It had to be sent on to the police, and the police had to be informed exactly where I was going, when I was going, when I was coming back. When I left camp, I stayed for a while in Karamay before I was able to go back to Kazakhstan. I didn't see any men, hardly at all. I saw maybe 2 Uyghur men in the age between 20 and in their 20s or 30s. Then I went to Pichan, which is where I'm from originally. There too, I did not see any men, hardly at all. I traveled from Khulja to Pichan. It took 6 hours, and we were checked at checkpoints over and over again on this way. Usually the way would have taken much less, but it took many more hours than it should have taken because of all the checkpoints that we had to pass. And this puts people at enormous stress, at enormous fear, constantly. It's not just in the camps, it's everywhere in East Turkestan.
Həmmаңlar köptən köp rəhmət, cəsarətinizə, iradəniz üçün Erbol, həmmаңlarga köptən köp rəhmət. Müşularni deyiş bilan birgə, əmdi bizning bu proqramımız müşədə axırlaşıdır.